Hello, today's objective is that we are going to find angle measures. You notice we're still finding angle measures. This time we are using the definition of linear pairs, vertical angles, and other angle relationships. So just as a reminder, vertical angles are what you have when two lines or segments cross each other. Vertical angles are the non-adjacent pairs, and they're congruent to each other. So these two that I just marked are congruent, and then these two non-adjacent angles that I'm marking right now are also congruent. A linear pair of angles are two angles that are next to each other, or adjacent to each other, that together make a straight line and therefore are supplementary. So linear pairs add up to 180. Vertical angles are congruent. So when you have two lines or segments that cross each other, you end up with pairs of vertical angles and linear pairs. So in this case, as I said, the two single mark angles are vertical and the two double mark angles are also vertical. And then the single and the double together make a linear pair, and then the same thing as you go around those angles. So in this example, determine all the missing angles from the figure below. Well, we know that the measure of angle y has to be equal to 76 because they're vertical angles, they're non-adjacent when two lines cross. And we also know that the measure of angle x is going to be equal to the measure of angle z because those are also vertical. Okay, now we don't know what that is yet, but once we know one, we know both. What we also know here is that y and x together, these two angles, make a straight line. They make a linear pair. And a linear pair is supplementary. So a straight angle has 180 degrees. These two angles together make that straight angle, which means that measure of angle x plus the measure of angle y is equal to 180. Since the measure of angle y is 76, I can solve this right now. Measure of angle x plus 76 degrees equals 180. And when you subtract 76 on both sides, you get that the measure of angle x is equal to 104 degrees. So I know that x is 104 degrees, and since we had already talked about this, measure of angle x and measure of angle z are equal to each other because they're vertical. So that means I also know angle z is 104 degrees. So I'm going to double check that I answered what they asked for. They said determine all the missing angles from the figure. I did, so we are done with this problem. The second example starts with some algebra. So when you take a look at this, what you should notice is that angle ADF, which is this angle, and angle GDC, which is this angle, are non-adjacent angles that are created when two line segments cross, which means they're vertical, which means they're congruent. What that means is that their angle measurements are equal to each other. So measurement of angle ADF must equal measurement of angle GDC. And then we can just plug in the information they gave us. So we have 9y plus 7, that's measurement of angle ADF, is equal to 2y plus 98. I'm going to subtract 2y on both sides, which gives me 7y plus 7 equals 98. Subtract 7 on both sides, we get 7y is equal to 91. And then finally, when you divide by 7, you get that y is equal to, 91 divided by 7 should be 23. So I found y. Let me make sure that that's what they asked for. They said, yes, determine y, but then they asked for additional things. So they said, find the measure of angle ADF. So let's see. Measure of angle ADF is equal to 9y plus 7. So that's 9 times 23 plus 7. 9 times 23 is way too big. I found my mistake. 91 divided by 7 is actually 13, not 23. So my apologies. We're going to go back and we're going to fix that. And that changes what's happening right here. So we've got 9 times 13 plus 7. 9 times 13 is 117, plus 7 is 124. So measure of angle ADF is 124 degrees. We've now found this. They did ask us for one more thing, though. They asked us for angle FDC. Now, this one's a little bit tricky because they didn't give us anything for that. We can't just plug anything in. But if you notice, angle FDC and angle ADF, which we just found, together are a linear pair, which means they're supplementary, which means they add up to 180. So we can finish this off by using that relationship. Measure of angle ADF plus the measure of angle FDC, which is what they asked for, is equal to 180 degrees. We know that ADF is 124 degrees. So the last thing we have to do here is subtract 124 to get measure of angle FDC by itself. And when we do that, this comes out to 56 degrees. So they asked for three things here. Measure of angle ADF, which we found was 124. Measure of angle FDC, and Y, which we initially solved for. And again, I'm sorry about that mistake. It's my last one ever. So our objective today was that we find angle measurements using the definition of linear pairs, vertical angles, and other angle relationships.